Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of the Secure Our Streets Conference 2023. My name is Sergei Weber. I will be your host for today, one of the hosts for today, and I'm the ASRG lead in Berlin, as John already said. We will kick off this conference with a very nice keynote presentation by Joern Eichler. Joern is working with Volkswagen passenger cars, and he is responsible for security architectures of vehicle platforms, secure product development methods and processes, as well as related standardization activities within Volkswagen passenger cars. His research is focused on the development of secure systems, and he is giving lectures on security engineering at Freie Universität Berlin. Joern has more than 20 years of experience as a researcher, developer, architect, and manager in very different industries and research organizations, and 15 years in the security domain. So, welcome, Joern. We're looking forward to your presentation. First things first, I would like to tell you if you have questions. So all the people in the session, if you have a question, please use the Q&A possibility on the right hand side on your screen, and I will collect the questions later on. If the attendees want to upvote some questions, there's also an upvote functionality, so go for it. Joern, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sergey, for the kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. And thank you as well for the invitation today. It's a great honor for me to be here to start the session. And especially, I think the conference concept is very inspiring. So I'm glad to support you here today from Berlin, Germany, where we have the Automotive Cybersecurity Lab from Volkswagen and also my office at the Freie Universität Berlin. And yeah, the title is Looking Back to the Future of Automotive Security. This talk will present my personal perspective regarding automotive security. It is not a scientific contribution or corporate statement. It's just my personal statement on cybersecurity at the situation today. And as Sergey already said, please use the Q&A. I will not read it while talking, but in the aftermath. So don't expect me to react to direct questions within my talk, because I have 2 or 3 screens open. It would distract me too much. But surely I will answer them after the talk. So going to the agenda. No, yes. We at Volkswagen are very proud to have new types homologated according to the UNEC R155. So today I want to take the chance to look back how we, together as an industry, have been getting here, and to focus some challenges that will most likely, at least in my personal opinion, shape our future in automotive security. And I prepared the slides a couple of weeks ago, and then I saw the agenda published on the page, and I said, "Oh wow, that's quite an impressive agenda." So I changed a little bit the talk today, and I will do give some references to speakers today. Not everybody for sure; it would take too much time, and skip those topics or go a little bit less deep on these topics, because they will be handled there more deeply than I could in 1 hour here. So I guess this is especially the spirit of the conference, that we together try to exchange our minds on topics, and this linking principle hopefully supports that as well. So my agenda for today could be read as a couple of questions. First, what do we want with automotive security in the first place? Then, what did change from the last, I don't know, 10 years up to now? What did we achieve so far? Where are we now? And what did we learn on the way that we became today? And last but not least, what do we need to consider? And I will take here a more engineering point of view. I guess the more technical point will be by André Weimarskirch in this talk on automotive cybersecurity map today and tomorrow. So this is the first reference already in the agenda. Right, and you see the beautiful car here that is actually homologated according to the R155. So as an intro, I want to take first a step back to see the whole picture better together. Citing the ISO SIA 21434, we all know this ISO. Automotive security is a condition in which assets are sufficiently protected against threat scenarios to items of road vehicles. So the perspective is we have cybersecurity as protection against threat scenarios, and it is a condition that needs to keep maintained. And if we dig deeper into security engineering, it is about building systems to remain dependable in the face of malice, error, or mischange, as Ross Anderson puts this. So we have adversaries that try to change the condition in favor of themselves, the attackers, and to harm organizations, users, road users, whatever. So the core essence of automotive security or cybersecurity is to protect road users. And why do I say this? Because I often get the misconception that automotive security is first, from my point of view, wrong misconception, a technical requirement that needs to be implemented, and then we are done. So it's the nerdy perspective. Okay, we have technical things to do in order to protect customers, in order to be cyber secure. The other perspective is that we need some kind of process conformity to get cybersecurity. So if we conform to all the process requirements detailed, for example, in the ISO SIA 21434, then we are secure in a way that automotive cybersecurity is achieved. And I guess, from my point of view, it should be the other way around. Both things are means to gain protection. So processes as well as technical requirements and the implementation of those requirements are means to protect our customers or the road users, not only the customers, on the street against attackers in their cars. And even worse, conformity to requirements does not imply protection of road users. So it is always something that we need to do. We need to comply to regulations. We need to comply to requirements that we set up. But we need first and in the ending as well, and also during the operation phase, check always, is the road user still protected? And just as I guess you have many examples as well, but there are dozens of examples where the compliance to regulations and even tight regulations like or standards like common criteria do not guarantee the initial aim, for example, the protection of road users in our case, or as we had it in the case of the Hamburger Wahlstift, to execute polls electronically, that this has been evaluated for regarding common criteria, evaluation assurance level 3+, and never got in live because it has serious security issues. So our perspective, and this is the invitation today, should be cybersecurity should always care about the road users and how we protect them in the first place. So what will be then my key stances here? I will take them like in before and also in the outlook. I will repeat them. So it's just as a guideline for you. From my point of view, we need to tackle the challenges that automotive cybersecurity has to take a long-term risk perspective. So it's not only risk that we need to consider, but we need a long-term risk perspective. We need to measure our performance, and this measure must be done on empirical evidence. So we just must abstain of having tick marks that we check, and if we have checked everything, it's a secure car or a secure situation. But we need to consider how could we effectively measure on empirical basis, are we secure and is the road user protected? Then we need to consider automation, but automation done right, not as a garbage generator, but to protect or to produce good quality and efficiently. And last but not least, standards and regulations are quite popular these days. and they are essential to provide a common language and common requirements, but they must not strangulate valid alternatives to implement security. So we need room for design alternatives in order to get automotive security done right. So these 4 thoughts I will try to bring closer to you. But first, I will start with looking back to the maturation of cybersecurity. So I draw a little table here as an overview. So it's an overview in a nutshell what I consider are remarkable changes in the last years on automotive cybersecurity. There is no timescale for sure because there's no quite precise timing behind all those graduations or maturations of automotive cybersecurity. But I guess you'll get the image here. So technology, organization, standards and regulations, and educations are the 4 aspects that we could look at. And if we look on technology first, we have mechanical solutions in the beginning, like steering wheel locks, something like that, in order to avoid or to hinder thieves to get our cars. This improved better in monolithic electronic systems like theft protection systems. So systems in the car dedicated for theft protection, or immobilizers that have their own that have been functions of their own regard within the car. And from that, I guess in the last 5 years, this is my personal observation here. We did a generalization of this security perspective. So also theft protection systems and immobilizers have been security functions and devices in the essence, and protected authenticity and integrity of systems, for example. But we generalized this in the past years to digital technologies for security, like key management systems to distribute key material in the car, and many other systems that then could be used by different like systems on top that provided value to the user. For example, immobilizers. So we have now, as we put it, a security architecture, so base functions for security to provide fresh key material, to provide authenticity in network communication. And on top of that, we can provide then customer needs or satisfies customer needs and mitigate the risks having these functions or this many functions in the car today. So this is the maturation, and this is quite impressive from my point of view, getting from these old mechanical or mature mechanical systems to these now digital technologies to protect um, uh, security goals in the car. On the second aspect, organization, I guess we all had these multi-focus engineers, theft protection engineers, for example, sometimes with other duties as well. So they try to do their best in order to get these steering wheel locks ready and working. Shifting then more and more to small organizational units for automotive security, often co-located with other cross-cutting domain perspectives, for example, with safety engineers, or as well with like the first functions like theft protection or immobilizer systems co-located there. Up to now, we have the certified cybersecurity management systems, at least on OEM side. So certified systems with dedicated units distributed over several organizational units in the organization. So this is quite also a hard thing that we had achieved in the past, but I will get back to that. We at Volkswagen, for example, have both. We have dedicated engineers in our cybersecurity department in the development, but we have also, and this is very important, that we have this split, security owners that are responsible for the different functions and devices in the car that are security relevant, and they are developing together with us. So together in the developing department as well as in the security cost-cutting department, secure devices. So we have 4 eyes principle. We have the knowledge of the devices and the functions, and we have then also the possibility to leverage security know-how in all departments and facilities. So organizations matured massively, from my point of view, at least, in the OEMs and also in the supplier chain. Last or next level would be standards and regulations. For sure, we will have this topic the day over and also in my talk several times. We started with special purpose standards, for example, for insurance ratings, sticking to the example with steering wheel locks and theft protection, that have been then complemented, I would say, with early or with existing IT security standards. I just named the 27001 from the ISO because it's so popular. Not to say that this had massive impact on automotive cybersecurity in the cars, but it has been the ISO of the days then. And now we have as well the regulation, the R155 that I already mentioned, but also the ISO 21434 and other standards for automotive cybersecurity. So we have our own regulation set, so to say, which is could be a good thing as well as a bad thing, as I will discuss later. And last but not least, and I guess this is also often underevaluated or underestimated aspect of cybersecurity, the role of personal skills and formal education. So in the past, I've been confronted many times with the idea that automotive security does not exist or we don't need special knowledge here. And we hadn't it in the past. So security has been a specialization for specific technologies or mostly technologies in the car that then got complemented by cybersecurity experts, general cybersecurity experts, so computer science students, for example, or engineers, electrical engineers with cybersecurity qualifications that maturated as well, from my point of view at least, to automotive cybersecurity or automotive security as a specialization of its own. So you can now, and I get you're all aware of that, get certified for as a cybersecurity engineer, automotive cybersecurity engineer. So there are now programs for that, and so we have now skilled people that also that can talk to each other because they have the same language, because they learned it somewhere, and there is a known body of knowledge that we can use. So education is, from my point of view, a very important thing, and so I'm very happy also to have that we have Adam Shostak today also as a speaker, a fully trained Jedi. You are not, because he's talking on education in cybersecurity, and I'm very glad or looking forward to listening to his talk. For sure, we have other overviews. I guess Kamel Gali will also talk on an overview how we maturated over the time. That will get into more details, perhaps falling backwards into automotive security. So also that will be a good talk on this topic, I guess. Some things, some figures, some arbitrarily drawn figures that could be seen as examples of this maturation of automotive cybersecurity. So I don't know whether we should be proud of it, but effectively we have now the same curve discussing vulnerabilities for automotive cybersecurity. So this number is drawn from the upstream report. That is also we have a talk today from Giuseppe Sergio on this report, where they said 151 CVEs we have now for 2022. Risen from 25 CVEs 2019. So the curve is going up as in other industries as well. So we might be there getting into the same race here. Another perspective might be the maturation self consideration of the organizations. We have there the report, for example, from the Bosch subsidiary ETAS or brand. They have a report on cybersecurity maturation, and there people respondents said, okay, 2022, we are still starting with cybersecurity. We are an initial phase here or maturity level, that then graduated to established in 2023. It's quite a steep curve from my point of view. So they're at least changed the perspective of the respondents on cybersecurity that now seem to accept and have seen cybersecurity as established in their organizations. And last but not least, to have at least also a little bit of a technical perspective. So Matthias, I guess, I didn't write down the name here, Schneider, reported on the SCART 222 that 60% of the mitigations that are mentioned, quotation required by the UNR 155 Annex 5, are partially addressed also in AUTOSAR. So we have now also there the maturation of the technology that we all can use as a framework supports many of the security functionalities technically that we need in order to address our security threats in the car. And this is also for sure a good thing if there is standard technology available that then can be used or replaced by other alternatives, but there is at least something existing. So from my point of view, we have good progress that is also visible in these numbers. Before I will proceed, I would like to ask also questions into your directions. And thanks very much for the feedback here. At least I see that somebody's listening. But now I would like also to start a small poll. And the poll is on the question, how are automotive incidents distributed in your company with regard to the attacker type? I stumbled about this question in the report from Upstream, so perhaps you read it as well. But my question would be, what is your experience so far? And I will get back to the poll results later in the talk. So it should be now published. Would be happy if you voted, and then we can discuss it later. I will announce the closing of the votes. So far to maturation. Then to conclude this, we have achievements for sure. I guess cybersecurity is now fully accepted as a required quality property. So there's no more answering like, no, cybersecurity is not relevant for automotive or cars or vehicles in general. We have, and this is a good thing from my point of view, a risk-based paradigm for cybersecurity established. So we have shared perspectives that cybersecurity is about mitigating risks. And also that we have a double feature here on processes. So we need to do things right, that's process, and we can validate it in the product. So that's technology. And so we have both pillars for cybersecurity that I think are important for cybersecurity for reaching a good protection for road users. Then we have an industry-wide common understanding based on the standards. So the ISO 21434 is often named and cited and is a well-established standard for cybersecurity. That's a very good thing because we have also there many discussions in before what should we name things or how should we name things. And we have also the achievement that now new types are complying with the UNICE, and that has been the final step that also the industry is not only maturing but also producing now products that have a given quality, a measurable quality. And last but not least, the market is still dynamically developing for cybersecurity, so there is still a growing need as well as offering on cybersecurity services. So far. Then next would be some experiences, and they are for sure also selected from my personal experience so far, and I will quickly sift through them, just giving some side notes on that. So we expected that. We have limited performance and memory and bandwidth in the car to implement cybersecurity in those cars. This proved true, but nevertheless, we managed to get the necessary means into the car. Had many hurdles. For example, we had some device that we switched on authentication at boot time, and now the sub uptime doubled, although it has been a requirement from the beginning. So we had all our lessons, I guess, here, how we get security technology in the devices and the functions. We had interferences with existing requirements, so that safety protocols, for example, needed a given timing that couldn't be reached with security authentication, where we had to rework things. We had the need for functional extensions, so that functions need to cope with new security states. So what is the meaning of there is a signal, but this authentication message for that signal is missing? Could we use it, and how could we use it, and how should the function react? So this has been things that we needed to consider in order to do cybersecurity well in the car. And for sure, we had our legacy, so system-specific security solutions that we needed to integrate in the security architecture and rebuild it, or live with the consequences that both things together, like proprietary hash values, for example, and calculations there on proprietary keys, are then to be maintained also and alongside with the general key management system, or to redesign both. And I guess we all learned that many issues have been only solvable getting from the perspective of the whole vehicle. So functions in the car could rely on specific properties of the architecture, for example, domain separation, in order to comply with the requirements from this risk analysis. Organizational wise, there is an anchoring now of security as a quality property, also as a cost-cutting concern. So at least to my knowledge, in many organizations that I have contact with, there are now contact persons not only in development for cybersecurity, but also in quality, IT, production, after-sales operations, that are all necessary to have the customer protected in the ending. And so this is something that we had to learn. And we had to learn also that the interplay is necessary, but also responsibilities needed to be defined. And so conflicts could be solved, because if you have many parties in the team, then you get conflicts, and so these conflicts needed to be solved. So we now have our governance in the organizations that allow for a good concert, hopefully. We have learned at VW as well, I guess, as others, that shifting security responsibles to organizational units only of the technology, so the technology as an initiator for security governance, for example, is not enough. But you need also to consider security governance and the operations, for example, as a topic of its own, and an organization that needs to be capable to handle those tasks. So shifting is not a good idea, just loading and overloading existing resources, but then to build up new resources for cybersecurity that I guess we had to learn all together. And last but not least, organization-wise, classical development. So the colleagues that are developing classical customer functions, working on their decomposed item there, are easily overburdened if we just push all our security requests to them and say, okay, come back if you're ready. So we need to do the things together. And I already had the side note on how we do this at VW, and I know similar concepts exist in other companies, but we need to consider this, that just throwing over the fence some requirements or some documents to be filled in is not a good idea to get secure solutions. And last but not least, on standards and regulations, and that's not a good thing. I intended to have also a second poll, but I just forgot it. I do it yet now. So you have now the chance also to poll on the rating of the impact of the UNICE on the protection of road users, if you like. But to spoil it, from my point of view, we had a big push for automotive cybersecurity also from this regulation. It's a very good thing that we have now a common set of requirements for OEMs, and also for sure then the suppliers. And also the shared interpretation is there, although it requires continuous discussions. So we need to discuss how we interpret all the regulations that are there, the requirements from the standards. But this is a good thing, because then after this we are aligned and use the same terminology and have the same requirements. But this becomes easily documentation heavy. So we have the issue of maintaining documents and documents and documents, and to consider how we could do this better, so this maintenance over the lifetime of the car becomes feasible and not just a burden. But bottom line, from my point of view, the push had been on cybersecurity, not only, but also profited massively from the regulations at hand. And if I look to the poll results, and I can show it to you as well, for example here, you see that there are, no, it's the wrong one. Yeah. Sorry, it's first time for me working with this. So now you should see the UNICE polls. And you see that also in the audience, there is the feeling that highly or positive value is assigned to the UNICE RF55 to the protection of road users. So not only that we have a regulation, but we have a regulation that protected or helped us protecting the customers or the road users. But also one said it's a negative effect. We can discuss this perhaps in the Q&A question. All right, back to the slide deck here. And I would now like to switch to the challenges. Oops, that should not happen. I need to restart my PowerPoint. Take a sec. I don't know why PowerPoint doesn't like challenges, but perhaps there's a deeper sense in it. So it's opening. And to be honest, this happened never before. So I have no clue why this is happening now. Okay. It's already on my screen. And now should be soon also on your screen. So I hope you see now the slides again. If you could give me some kind of feedback, would be nice. Yeah, sure, thanks. All right, so switching to the challenges, and as I already introduced, I will focus on 4. And one of the first focus challenge is the long-term aspect of cybersecurity and long-term maintenance for cars. So this is something that is that we will have to learn. So I tried to explain. I think we have learned much in the past, but I guess we have some steep learning curve here also for us together, how to tackle our long-term maintenance aspect. So vehicular technology is traditionally designed to launch time requirements. So we design to cost and quality at launch time. But the number of variants grow with every SOP. And variants, as we all know, are a major driver for long-term maintenance effort. So if we also consider that the ability to provide updates degrades over time, for example, due to the deep supply chain and the changes in the supply chain, I guess we all see the picture here. So from my point of view, on the other hand side, just to have this said, we need to take the long-term risk perspective because of the technology. So this degrades, this develops over time. Because of the threat landscape, we have, for example, quantum computers or stuff like that, that will make our or render our current mitigations less effective than they are today. And for sure, also the environment is changing. And so we need to adapt. And so we need to consider how we could integrate those long-term risk perspective into our development cycle and also into the structures of the industry in order to cope with this challenge from my point of view. In order to do so, and this is the second challenge from my point of view, we need metrics that allow us to understand, are we doing the right thing effectively? And not only at design time, but especially also over the operation time. So we need good metrics to understand, are we doing the right thing, and what of our activities is especially good to support the protection of the road user over lifetime. So is it a very detailed risk analysis? Is it a very good automated testing? Is it a very uh, good organizational setup that allows for quick reactions? We need to measure this and to measure this together in order to get a good understanding how we can effectively protect the user and not only fulfill requirements. And so from the point of view, I named here a couple of indicators that we have at hand, but I guess we are not there yet. Neither with the understanding which metric would be the right one, as well as measuring them in a way that could be guiding us as an industry to get the right things done. Third challenge is automation. So we are having a complex system at hand. So for example, you will have talks on software-defined vehicles and other technology aspects of the car and their developments. So handling complex systems needs good methods for sure, but also automation if they are not only complex, but also high in number. And unfortunately, from my point of view, we are not there yet that we understand that automation not always helps us. It needs to fulfill some premises, at least from my personal point of view. And if I put it in these old, how it is named in English, EVA-Prinzip in Deutsch, it is IPO, input, processing, and output principle. So left input, then processing, then output. We have requirements for this. We need a well-defined and actually existing input. So it doesn't help us if we define an automation that works on input that needs to be created for this automation. At least we should consider it twice. And it should be well defined. So garbage in, garbage out, as we say. We need to understand what we are putting into an automation. And similarly with the output, we need to produce with automation things that we actually need. So it's worthless to create information that could be helpful if we consider it twice or a third time and do not know the things that we need to know in the first hand or in the first place. So the validity check is here. Do we need the result, and is the result actionable? So could we do something with the result, or do we have just a couple of further questions that we could answer and waste further time on that? Because the middle thing, the automation, the computers never get bored. So they will produce data and data and data. So it is up to us to define what they should compute, and that is the result is actionable and well-defined and actually needed. And last but not least, also the automation itself, working in a certified environment, need to be explainable and auditable to third parties. So everybody could understand how this works and what is actually the result of transformation of input to output in order to get things well done. And so some hints, if you executed things frequently in the past and they went well, perhaps this is a good idea to think of automation, the collection of data, for example, checks on thresholds, consistency in analysis or specifications, also execution of verifications that could be automated, are all candidates for good automation. But other things should be thought twice, and if you just generate an alternative representation with an automation, it's perhaps a good idea to have this in the first place. So providing a model that explains the attributes that you are looking for better than having, for example, generated masses of potential threats that you then need to sift out manually. So just as an example, from my point of view, automation is needed, but we need to think which automation we want and how it is specified. And I also learned that we have at least two talks today on automated end-to-end security testing, for example, from Alon Ashkenazi, as well as from Thomas Liedtke on end-to-end derivation of security requirements. I'm curious how they tackle this topic here. And last but not least, from the challenges point of view, we have the regulation. First, we have the topic of fragmentation. So we experiences now together that we have fragmentation of regulation in several domains. So we have different national and international regulatory bodies that are regulating cybersecurity for automotive. So this is getting diverse. Then we have different regulations on cybersecurity that have impact on cybersecurity on automotive. So they are general automotive cybersecurity regulations, but they impact us as well. And last but not least, we have also different regulations on technologies that have also cybersecurity impact. So getting this together can be very tedious. So every regulation adds governance effort on all sides, complexity, and complexity partly also in the car, or gets even worse in terms of conflicting requirements that could not solved in one car, but in different variants. And this is very unfortunate. So I guess we as an industry should sit together and with all the stakeholders here that we maintain a course and compact set of standards and regulations that we all sit on and not get overwhelmed by different requirements. And we have also a talk here from Holly Hennessy, the road to regulation. I guess she will touch the topic as well. But one thing from my point of view as well as an input, another aspect, giving the fragmentation as one aspect, we have the paradigm that is used for regulation. And with UNECE and the ISO 21434, we have a risk-based approach. So that requires some kind of knowledge. We need to align also on the evaluation criteria that are not very detailed in the standards or regulations, but they allow for diverse technical solutions as well as compliant products that are able to adapt to external changes. In the opposition of, and this is for sure just an opposition to raise discussions, but I see that we have difficulties here or getting difficulties here, technology-focused standardizations and regulations that for sure facilitate application and verification because it's standardized. Also interoperability is featured there if you have a technology-focused regulation or standard. But they tend to create conflicting and degrading requirements, especially if you have the landscape that I just presented over multiple countries or international organizations and multiple technology domains and industries. So then we are getting into trouble from my point of view if we now tend to fulfill arbitrarily many requirements on a technical level. So to wrap up and conclude from my side, look back has been on automotive cybersecurity that matured largely in the last years, especially in the last 5 years from my point of view. We grew quite some speed here. We achieved good things. We have now cars that are better than they have before, and they are getting better. They're getting even better. We had to change many things to get there, technology-wise, organization-wise, and many challenges that we had and that we have, we share with other industries. So we always should look at how other industries solve problems, like, for example, tackling system and software complexity and getting those things secure. But to the future, from my point of view, we need to look at least on the four aspects. So the automotive cybersecurity long-term risk perspective. We need performance measures that are directed towards evidences, so we can actually improve protection of users and road users, not improve compliance to standards. And automation is our friend as long as we define it well and provide it with verifiable tasks. And regulation standards are good as long as they provide a shared language and a common set of requirements for all of us, but must not become a straitjacket for engineering. So much from my side, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you much for the participation in the polls, and now happy to discuss questions from your side.
Thanks, Joern. There are many questions already pile up in the Q&A section.
Before we start, Sergey, because I just thought we have one poll open. I just closed it. Well, should we have a short look on that?
We should. We should.
Perfect. So that are your results. I asked how are automotive incidents distributed regarding the attacker type, and we see here quite diverse picture. First of all, there are many that don't know or that haven't got an incident. Congratulations here. But on the other hand side, we have many that had many more remote than local, but also the opposite. So it seems to be diverse. And this is exactly the thing that I expected, that we need to consider. There will be reports on how they distribute by different parties, for example, upstream. And I think it's a good idea to have this kind of reports, but we always have to think twice whether this information is the information that is exactly describing my environment and my situation, or whether it's an aggregation that does not fit to my um, perspective as well. So thanks for the participation, and then we can, sorry, Sergey, go to the questions.
So what I'm going to do is I will show the most upvoted questions directly on stage, and you have to more or less react spontaneously on that. So, and they're very diverse. So I think they touch a lot of very cool points. If we will not be done in time, and I check my clock, I think we have enough time. However, if you're not, my camera is giving up. If you're not in time, are you available in the lounge so that people can ask a question after the session? Would you have
Partly,
a little?
partly.
Okay,
I have some appointments, but also I will attend some of the talks. So
perfect. Okay, so I restart my cam once again. It's working not that nice. However, it's not about me, it's about the questions. So let's see the first question. This is by Martin. Do you know if Volkswagen has plans for giving out research devices for academia and white hats similar to Apple?
um, first of all, it's not my responsibility. So we are working on plans to open up to the community. And the how it will work, we will communicate, but perhaps it's too early to communicate that. But there will be changes in the current situations, comparing to the kind of current situation.
Understand. So I will mark that as answered. However, if Martin, if you would like to discuss this point in detail or would like to understand more, please meet Joern in the lounge, right? So next question would be from Pavio. How is the maturity of the organization of the tier ones, tier twos? You refer to OEMs who have the drive due to the regulations. Do you think tier ones, tier twos are also ready?
The good thing is that I see that you're from Capgemini, and so perhaps you have also a picture there. But my picture would be that, or my impression is that we have a diverse set here as well. So there are tier ones, tier twos that are also nagging us, I would say, with security questions, because and showing and demonstrating their accordance to ISO 21434, for example, and other cybersecurity frameworks. So they are quite advanced, and for sure there are always some parties late that we need to remind that there are things like cybersecurity that they should do. So it is quite diverse, but there are many suppliers now quite mature from my point of view, and that is a good thing because we need to do this together. From my point of view, I said we have this long-term risk posture where we have to work together in the supply chain.
Do you see differences between the regions? So um, suppliers from specific regions are further ahead? No
I'm
blaming.
biased
No
there.
blaming.
Yeah, I'm biased there. So I would say yes, but I wouldn't name because my observation point of view is not objective.
Perfect. We do not play this blame game. Okay,
Exactly.
I mark it as answered, and I will show the next question on stage from Matthias. Since cybersecurity is established and we have standards, how do you think it will be integrated into the broader ecosystem and standardization landscape like ITS, smart grid, V2X?
Exactly, that is the point, or that is the issue that I would try to raise with the fragmentation aspect and the type of regulation or regulation paradigm. Many people working on that to have their claim here and also trying to work on integrating the different perspective. But I see there room for improvement. I see too many cooks at the table that have their own topic at hand, and I can understand that if you are considering a broader scope, you have also many more stakeholders, and things get very complex and slow. But from my point of view, a better governance of the different standards internationally is needed. So I guess it's not only a question of integration, but also of alignment of the standards. So we must avoid that we have conflicting standards and requirements, but we see that they are growing. So this is call for action from my point of view to have a better better governance on the standards that are growing here.
Understand and agree. Next question comes from Artem. Here we go. To what extent can the application of ISO 21444 increase the cost of product development, and what are the key activities that require more effort? Do you
For
want
sure.
to answer in detail?
Yeah, here's my balance sheet. For sure, it is every activity that needs to be done is also a cost factor. And unfortunately for us, talking business-wise, we have the cost that we can account against this initial cost in development very late in operations. So for sure, the first impression is always the application, for example, of the ISO 21434 costs money and doesn't have any like cost-saving factors. um, but I think that as we are talking about risks and long-term risks, we are doing good to invest here and have later other costs avoided. On the other hand side, key activities require more effort. That depends largely on the organization, from my point of view. So I wouldn't rate here now, for example, testing more important than risk analysis or doing better specifications against better documentation. This is very organization dependent from my point of view, and also to my knowledge. I know this not from the automotive industry, but from other industries, that there are a specific pulse on that, and they displayed that the key activities vary over the different organizations and also the cost on that. But for sure, you need some kind of risk estimation that is maintains in the core of your activities. So every activity should be risk driven. So you cannot avoid to have good risk analysis that work for you and direct your efforts.
Understand. The next question would come from Jesus. So this is the question. Do you see good thing to share MORA or TARA results with suppliers to do an integrated, consistent vehicle level analysis with suppliers' feedback?
Mhm. First thing is, if we see it first as engineers and not politicians, we for sure need a perspective. What are the problems to be solved in order to solve them adequately? So you cannot solve a problem if you don't understand the problem right. And the problem in security is the risk formulation. So if you have some kind of risk analysis, it states what is your problem that should be solved. So some transfer of information is necessary to the suppliers, and also in feedback of the suppliers to the OEMs, what they have done so far. But for sure, on the other hand side, we are in contractual relationship. So information is also something very valuable. And there are projects on the way, also, for example, in the research domain, that try to tackle this issue, because this is a trade-off from my point of view. So having the right information transparently communicated on the one hand side, and protecting the IP, as well as protecting the possibilities to negotiate on prices. So this is not solved yet from my point of view, but there will be more communication from my point of view in the future than we have it now, to allow also from both perspectives, so OEM as well as supplier, to do their work better.
The next question, and I think it might be also the last one, maybe two more, comes from Juan. And this also addresses a little bit your past in cybersecurity architecture, right? Is there mapping existing between UN Regulation 155 and the coverage of AUTOSAR?
I can share a link after the session here to the talk that has been on AUTOSAR and automotive cybersecurity, and they displayed parts of such a mapping. So it exists. That's what I've referenced, and I can share a link.
So, and I assume that's a YOLO question. However, let's have a look. When will Volkswagen participate in the Pawn to Own program already?
Yes, as already said, we are doing things, and we will communicate to given time.
Perfect. Joern, thank you very much for the presentation, for the great presentation, for all the answers given. I would kindly invite you to the lounge now and later as well, and also everyone who wants to get in touch with Joern and ask their questions. We have quite a few still left, so that's a perfect opportunity to mingle, to network, and to ask your question. So, Joern, thank you very much.
Thank you as
Everyone,
well,
bye bye.
and have a good day
Bye
altogether.
bye.
Bye.